Since yesterday we were talking in Dan about Avram, and at that point he was still called Avram. How he had been called out of the Ur the Kasdim. And my understanding is that Ur most likely was in Mesopotamia, or what we call Babylon. And so in a very real way, Father Abraham was called out of Babylon. Likewise, you and I are called out of Babylon. But when he come out of Ur, he first stops in Haran, and he stays there a while. And then he leaves his father, Terah, and he goes on and he crosses over into the land. And when he crossed over into the land, he becomes Avraham. And this covenant is ratified between he and the Creator. But you'll also remember back in Genesis 12 that as soon as he comes into the land, there was a famine. And that famine forced him to go down to Egypt. And do you remember what he did in Egypt? He told Sarah to pretend that we're just brothers and sisters. Don't tell anybody that we're husband and wife, lest they kill me. In other words, at that point in his life, Avram was more concerned about self-preservation than he was about doing what was right. But jump forward a few years to Genesis chapter 22, when he's told to take your son that you love, Isaac, and to lift him up to be an olah, a burnt offering at the place that I will show you. And without hesitation, he got up, he got his donkey, he got the wood, he got his son and his servants, and he made his journey to the land of Moriah. And he took his son to the top of that hill. And I'm sure with tears in his eyes, he bound him and lifted him up onto that altar, ready to put the knife to his throat to slaughter him. But we know the story. The Creator was not desiring Isaac's death. He was desiring Abraham's death to himself. And so the man that stands on top of the mountain in Genesis 22 is not the same man who came out of the Ur the Kasdim. And yet the Creator who called him out of the Ur the Kasdim, on the day he called him forth, he knew that he would call him to Mount Moriah. And so you and I have been called forth. And when he called us forth, when we were born again of that incorruptible seed, everything was there. Just like in creation, everything was there that was required, that was needed for you and I to come and to develop into that person that he created us to be. But we have been going through a process. We are being shaped. We are being molded. And sometimes being shaped and molded is not fun because we learn things about ourselves. Many of those fishermen that he called forth from these shores, through the process, they found out things about themselves. But the only way it was possible for these things to come to the surface was to be in the presence of the Word, to be in the presence of the light of the world. But as this unfolds, they too are going to be called to step into that purpose for which they were created. You and I, one day, are going to step into that purpose for which we've been created. And so it's not accidental that when we leave these shores, we will begin, like Yeshua did, to set our face toward Yerushalayim. Because all of this that happened here was preparatory for what was to occur up in Jerusalem. And that's where Abraham had to go, to display to the Creator that he was a man who feared God and would not withhold anything from him, if you will, to die completely to himself, to become that man that he created him to be. And so Yeshua also sets his face to go to Jerusalem to exemplify how we, as his followers, must die to ourselves that the Father's purpose can come forth. So we're going to have to, one day, I'll make a prediction, one day you and I, as we continue on this journey, as we continue to prepare for what it is we've been placed on this earth to do, and that is, first and foremost, to sanctify the name of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. That's why we exist. Let me go off on another little quick story here. Those three men in Daniel chapter 3, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those men in Daniel chapter 3 stood there before the most powerful man of the whole earth at that time, and essentially told him this: even though you've been given the power to destroy our bodies, we fear the one who has the power to cast both body and soul into hell. And so, because of that, we will not bow down to your gods. We won't do it. And in effect, what they were doing is saying, we are dying to ourselves. Because our life exists for one reason, and that is to serve His purposes, to sanctify His name. And so we will die to ourselves. And there are a group of people that are mentioned in Revelation chapter 12. It says that they overcame the adversary by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony. And that's where most people stop. But it continues on and it says, and they loved not their lives even unto death. That is what we're called to be. And Yeshua called forth men here. He's calling us forth. It's the third day, prophetically speaking. Hosea 6, come let us return to the Lord. He is broken, but He will heal us. He is smitten, but He will bind us up. After 2 days, He will revive us. And on the third day, He will raise us up that we may dwell in His sight. You know, it's been about 2,000 years since Yeshua set His face to go to Jerusalem. And as we know, as a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as 1 day. And so 2 days are coming to an end. We are coming into the time of the third day. And again, He is calling forth all that hidden seed to come forth and to bear fruit and to serve its purpose, His purpose, not our own. And so I'll just I'll conclude with this. You know, riding on this lake and looking at the waters, and again, thinking about all the different things that happened here. And specifically centered around the ministry of Yeshua. It speaks to me. I don't even know that I can articulate what I'm feeling. But I know this. It's providential that we're here. You know, there are a lot of people who signed up to come on this trip that backed out. They were scared. They were frightened. They thought it was just too dangerous. And with all due respect to those people, it's going to have to take some courage to possess the land and to fulfill our purpose. And it's not going to be for the faint of heart. Because if you seek to save your life, you will lose it. But those who for my sake will lose their life, they'll find it, right? That's what Abraham learned. That's what Yeshua manifests for us. And so as we tomorrow prepare to leave this place, let's understand that up until this point, this has all been preparatory. This has all just been one step closer to why we've been placed here on this earth. Because one day our Mount Moriah experience is coming. Amen?